everybody, I'm Chef Julia Dunaway, and I make whole food plant-based dishes that I really enjoy, and I hope you enjoy them too, and I don't use oil. And today I'm making a couple of recipes out of my ebook and actual cookbook. This is Julia's copy on the front of it. This is plant-based breakfast favorites, and it started out as an ebook, and then somebody that I know has a small publishing company, and she said that she could put it on Amazon, and that way people could buy the hard copy. So it's on Amazon. It's called Plant-Based Breakfast Favorites. Some people don't like ebooks because they don't want to have to look on their computer for a cookbook, so you can get it either way. But I thought I would make this recipe today. It's tofu scramble and creamy grits. And I wanted to make it because even though the recipe's have been out there in my ebook, and I probably made a demo of it on Facebook sometime, when I posted a picture of my breakfast recently of the creamy grits and the tofu scramble, a bunch of people were like, "Where's that recipe? And how did you make that? And how did you make the tofu scramble? And what are grits? And how do you make grits?" And they had all these questions, and I thought, I just need to do a YouTube video of this recipe so that people can get an idea of how this is made, because it's really not very complicated, but it may be new to some people. I have all my ingredients over here, and just to show you that I really think that tofu scramble is something that is really good to eat. It has mushrooms. It doesn't have to have bell pepper. That was just there in case I decided to use it. It has onion, tomatoes, it can have scallions, hot peppers, and so it has some vegetables in it. And then of course the star of the show for tofu scramble is tofu, which has soybeans, so it's a source of protein. So it's very filling and satisfying, and my husband really likes this recipe. So I like to make things. He doesn't like all my plant-based stuff. A lot of it he doesn't like. He hates lentils. So rather than make something that I like that he doesn't like, I'm always looking for things that he likes, and he likes this. And then grits. I got my grits from Charleston, and I'll show you what they look like. Grits are just nothing but ground up corn. Now the grits that you get in the grocery store, they're probably, and I'm going to get my pan heating up here. The grits you get at the grocery store, the white grits, are probably processed more. And this is my 3.5 cups of a combination of vegetable stock and water. So I use kind of half and half. So the vegetable stock that I buy at the store, if I don't have my own homemade vegetable stock, the vegetable stock I buy at the store has a little sodium in it. So what I do is I just water it down a little bit. So I use half and half strength because I don't really want that much sodium in my food. Just a little bit goes a long way, and I won't add any salt to this recipe. So basically we get our cup, and I'm following my recipe. It's called Creamy Grits in the cookbook or the ebook. And I have my grits measured out, and these are yellow stone ground grits. Now I can't buy these in the regular grocery store. They usually don't have them. But I buy them online. I buy them at Amazon, or, like I bought these in Charleston. So that was pretty cool. I went there on a trip, and they had this brand, which I really enjoyed, called Food for the Southern Soul. So I bought them there, and then I liked them so well that when I ran out, I looked for the company online, and lo and behold, it was on Amazon. So that was good. And in my recipe, I'm going to bring the stock to a boil and then start whisking in the grits. In the actual recipe, I talk about taking onions, garlic, and bell pepper and sauteing them first before adding the water and the grits. And that was because the grits were the main thing. That was the cereal, or the breakfast was creamy grits, and it had vegetables in it and some greens. But today, since I'm putting all those vegetables and greens in my tofu scramble, I'm not going to put them in the grits. It's not necessary. So I'm just going to make classic grits, which basically it's always going to be 1 cup of grits to about 3 to 4 cups of water, depending on how thin or thick you like them. And the thing about stone ground grits, since they're coarsely ground, these are not fine like the Quaker's Quick Grits and the stuff in the store. These are, you can actually see they're little pieces of corn. They're going to take a lot longer because what we're doing is we're taking dried corn and we're rehydrating it by cooking it. It's the same thing as polenta. And if we don't cook it long enough, then it will just taste real gritty and hard, and it won't be very pleasant to taste. So we're definitely going to cook it. Can it take 30 minutes? Yeah, it may take 40, it could take 45. You don't really know because depending on what grits you're using and how high you're cooking them, the time can vary, but you'll know they're done because when you taste them, they're soft. And you can always add more water. If you hear some noise over here, it's my boxers. Hey guys, they're puppies and they were just laying there so quiet. So here I am, and now they're acting crazy. These are I've shown these puppies before. Come here, guys. Come here. See if I can get her to come. Come here. Kim, Jiro. This one is Jiro. He's our new puppy. We got him in February, and he is about 4 months old now. So he's a little bitty boy. He's the new one. And I think I've showed you before, I've done videos, and I had Kameko. And Cammy is now like 45 pounds, and she's almost 6 months old. So now she's got a little buddy, Jiro. Okay, guys, go play. Go wash my hands. So those two play all the time. They're having a great life. They're having fun, but it's been a lot of work. So that's what you hear in the background. You're hearing my cooking buddies. Their names are Kameko, which means tortoise, child of tortoise in Japanese, because if you look at her coat, it looks like a tortoise shell. And then Jiro, J-I-R-O. Everybody wants to call him Gyro or Euro. It's Jiro. It's a Japanese name. And Jiro and Taro, which was the name of my boxer who died in October. Jiro and Taro were the two dogs that survived being left in Antarctica for 6 months, and no one thought any of the dogs would survive, and those two dogs survived. So in Japan, those two dog names are really popular, Taro and Jiro. So I always wanted to use the name Jiro, and so I finally got a little baby, a little boxer, named him Jiro, and he's very sweet. Okay, so my vegetable stock water has come to a boil, and now watch carefully what I'm going to do. Don't really have anybody here to help me with filming today, so you're going to have to watch kind of from a distance. But I'm going to wait till it comes to a full boil, and then I'm just going to whisk the grits in. And I'm going to immediately turn them down because these things will boil over before you know it. I can't tell you the number of times I have looked away and left grits boiling in a pot on the stove, and then all of a sudden it was like a big boil over of grits. That was not a good sight, but you just clean it up and go. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and I'm not going to put them all in at once. You see, I'm just putting in a little at a time, because what you want to avoid is you want to avoid this great big clump of grits, getting in one place, because they'll stick together like that. So in a minute, I'm going to put them on the back burner because I need this burner. So I'm going to set them on this burner back here and let them simmer. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so we'll just let those simmer. I'm going to put a lid on there, and they really do take a full, I think the last time I made them, it took me like 40 minutes to cook. So they're not fast food. But I don't want to make fast food. I'm all about kind of slow food that takes time to prepare and tastes really good. So I don't mind if it takes time to make it. It's okay with me. So I got my skillet here. I'm going to put my dogs. Hey guys, go out here. Go out. Out. Go on. Go on. Hopefully they'll leave the room. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the tofu scramble. So with the tofu scramble, I've got my skillet heating up. I'm going to be adding some onions and different things, but first I like to always add the onions. I have a nice yellow sweet onion. In Texas, we have these really sweet onions. And this is a really good one. They don't have a real bitter taste. And, they're kind of big though. So most of my recipes will say 1 cup of onion, because I always hate it when you get a recipe and it says 1 onion. And then I think, if you saw the onions I buy, you wouldn't say 1 onion, you'd say maybe 1/4 of that onion. So I just try to kind of go by the actual measurement of how many onions I want in the recipe. So in this case, I'm going to use probably half of this onion, because I can tell 1 would be too many. And then to cut my onion, first of all, you saw that I cut the end off, the root end off. Or, no, I cut the top end off. I always leave the root. And then I make a horizontal slice. And then I just make vertical slices down the lines of the onion. Okay, I've got to shoo my dogs out. They're not leaving. Okay, out. Goodness gracious. I figured they'd leave. Okay, so then I just kind of made the lines. Sorry about that. That's life. I'm all about real life. My videos aren't that polished. They're just me cooking. I know a lot of people probably don't want to see that, but then you wouldn't be watching my video. Some people tell me, they're like, we just want the recipe. Do I have to watch the video? When they want one of my recipes, they'll say, oh, I want the recipe for raspberry crisp. How do I get it? And I'll say, well, it's on my YouTube channel. Oh, I don't want to watch you cook it. I just want the recipe. And so I always tell people, and it seems like I thought everybody knew this, but the recipes are in the show notes. So right next to the title of every YouTube video, if the person has put the recipe in the show notes, all you have to do is click on the little arrow. Okay, we started our grits about 2:35. It's 2:40. I'm trying to keep track of this. Okay, so I'm going to let these onions brown, and I'm not afraid to let them brown. I have it turned up to about medium-high on my gas burner, and I like them to develop a little color because that will make them taste good. So I'm also going to add some, about, I think 4 cremini mushrooms would be good. I don't want to make it have too many mushrooms, too many of any one thing. So I'm just going to put 4 mushrooms in here. I'm going to add some mushrooms and garlic and let it all saute and develop some color. And color creates flavor. Since we don't use oil, the flavor we create is when the natural sugars from the vegetable are released, then they turn brown, and then that creates this nice effect where you have some flavor. It's like caramelization. And that really makes a big difference in your finished food when it has a nice flavor. And the thing I see a lot of people doing is they will, instead of using the pan and getting some heat on the pan, I've seen a lot of people just add water to the pan and then they add their food. And they're doing that because they don't want it to stick. But the effect that has is it kind of steams or boils the vegetables. And that's not a good taste. So instead of doing that, don't be afraid. If you saw my onions, I know I can't do any close-ups today, but you can see that they're developing a nice light brown and they smell really good. So that's exactly what I want. Now I'm going to throw my mushrooms in. At any time I can add some water if I thought everything was starting to look, you know, too dry, or if it looked like it was burning. Like right now, it kind of looks like it's at a point where it probably wouldn't hurt to add a couple spoonfuls of water. So as soon as I add the garlic, I'll add a little water. And I have my measuring cup here. I can just keep some water handy. And that's usually what I do, is I just keep water handy, but I don't water saute, as I've heard, throwing my onions around, as I've heard some people use the expression. They say, oh, I'm going to water saute my vegetables, and I think, nah, don't do that. They're just gonna taste watery. So here I've got 3 garlic cloves. With the garlic cloves, I just cut the hard end off, and then I kind of smash it with my knife, and then the garlic comes right out. So the hard end, put some weight on it, and then the skin comes off easily if you don't drop the garlic. That's a lot easier than trying to peel it without doing that. So I think 2 cloves of garlic is enough. These are kind of big garlic cloves. I have, in my recipe, it says 3 teaspoons of fresh minced garlic. And I think this will make 3, maybe, let me put the 3rd clove of garlic in there. I think I really need it. I don't have to use all of it if I decide it's more than 3 teaspoons. Okay, I'm going to stir this a little. I'm kind of keeping an eye on it because I don't want it to burn, and I'm seeing some pieces are getting kind of dark. So I'm going to go ahead and put my couple of spoonfuls of water in there. I'm going to turn it down. See how hot that is? And what that's doing is that is caramelizing the onions, and now it's going to cook them until they're soft. And I'm going to cover them because covering it will soften up the onions and make them cook. And I like that. I don't like it when if you don't cook your onions, they kind of have that bitter taste. And I've had that many times where somebody's given me a plant-based dish and all the aromatics, the onion and garlic and everything are all kind of raw. It's like, that doesn't taste very good. Don't serve people raw onions and garlic and celery and carrots. You have to kind of, without oil, you have to do a little cooking. You have to put the water in there, put the lid on, cook it down for that part. Now, I don't mind having al dente vegetables if they're supposed to be, like maybe the green beans and asparagus and carrots and broccoli. Those can be kind of on the less cooked side and they're fine, but for your onions and things like that, you want them to be cooked. Mushrooms, I'm going to stick all this garlic in here. I think that's about the right amount, 3 teaspoons of garlic. And I'm going to keep the lid on a little bit longer and just let it soften. And then I'll take the lid off and let it cook. So I've got those panini mushrooms. You can use any kind of mushrooms. If you hate mushrooms, don't put mushrooms in it. You know, some people follow Dr. Furman, and he talks about G-bombs, the garlic, onions, mushrooms, and berries. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else is in there. Beans. Okay, so look, we've got plenty of those things covered. So how are our grits doing? I've got my little whisk. I'm going to whisk them around. They're doing great. They're cooking nicely. You can kind of see. You can't really tell, but you know, they're what they want to be. But this is what you want to do from time to time. Is take your whisk, go in there and stir the grits around because otherwise they might clump up a little bit. You don't want that. Okay, now I'm going to also add a jalapeno or a serrano chili to my vegetables. You don't have to add this. It's just I like things that have hot peppers in them. I put my trash bowl over here so I don't have to lean so far. What I did was I cut the pepper around the edges so I don't want all those membranes and seeds in there. This way, I just get the outside of the pepper. That's the way I like it. If you like all the seeds and the membranes, and stick it all in there, but most people don't. And if you don't want it spicy, then don't do this. Don't add this because it will kind of spice things up a bit. Sometimes I get accused of making things too spicy. People will say, well, everything you make has peppers in it. It's like, well, I live in Texas and we like things kind of spicy. We like things with jalapenos and serranos and red chili flakes and just, you know, it's kind of that Tex-Mex thing, and it's just how people eat a lot of that kind of stuff here. And then I'm going to put in a couple of tomatoes. I don't have Roma tomatoes. I didn't have any of those, but I have some of these nice little, they're just Italian tomatoes. I can't remember what they were called, but they were from Costco. I have a bunch of them. And they're kind of nice pretty red. So I'll put a couple of those in there. And they don't have a lot of seeds, which is nice. So they're not going to just be a watery, messy tomato. They'll be easy to chop. And they're going to cook down, so it doesn't matter, you know, how they look chopped, but I'm kind of rough chopping them. They look really good. I don't buy a lot of huge quantities of vegetables at Costco. And the reason for that is because I've wasted a lot of that kind of stuff. Just because. All right, so I'm going to get these tomatoes in here. Yeah, I bought bulk, gigantic packages of stuff. And I don't know if you've ever done this at these big box stores. And you think, oh, I'm going to get all this food so I have plenty for my meal prep and I have plenty of stuff to eat for this week. It's going to be great. And then you buy, you know, gigantic boxes of vegetables and then you end up throwing it out. So no, I don't do that anymore. Okay, so I've added that. A little vegetable stock, 1/4 of a cup of vegetable stock is next. So I have a little bit more than 1/4 of a cup, so I'm going to put in the 1/4 of a cup and save some to add if I need to. A little bit later, I'm going to turn my heat up a little bit. So in my skillet, I have the onions, garlic, pepper, mushrooms, and tomato. And that's it. And so I'm going to let that cook. I'm trying to get this cooked down so that it's developing all its flavor. And I have some other flavors to add. I have a tablespoon of lemon juice. So I'm going to cut this lemon. This is a big lemon. So a tablespoon of lemon juice. And all these things do add up to make things taste better. You know, if you didn't put the lemon juice in, would it matter? Probably not. It's not going to be the end of your dish if you didn't put lemons in it. But why would you put lemons in there? Well, it adds brightness, which is a component of cooking things that make things taste more interesting. And especially those of us that are trying to reduce the amount of salt we eat, if we make our food brighter, meaning brightness is a word that was tossed around a lot in culinary school. It just meant that it was more exciting to the palate, I think, cleaner tasting. It had some kind of oomph to it, like the citrus lime. When you put lime on something, it gives it just kind of that taste, a good taste. Okay, I've got my tofu, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in, then we'll put the spices in. So let me talk about the tofu. I'm going to show you the package. I buy this organic tofu. It's called Nasoya. And my husband gets it for me at Walmart. It's non-GMO organic, you know, and it's extra firm. And I love this brand of tofu. And they have it of all places, you know, they have it at regular supermarkets. You don't have to go to an Asian store or anything. The thing about it, though, is sometimes when my husband goes to Walmart to get it, they don't have any. And what's funny is, it's like we live in a small town where not that many people eat tofu, I don't think. Because whenever I talk about tofu, they look at me like, that's weird. So I don't think it's a popular thing, but there's an Asian restaurant. So I think it's like a Japanese fusion restaurant. I don't think I need this bowl right now. So the Japanese fusion restaurant, I think they go and buy all the tofu out. Because sometimes they have none, and then other times they'll have 50 boxes, and then my husband will buy me like 15. Okay, so I had to press the tofu. It comes in a lot of water. It's all packed in water, so I drain the water, and then my technique is I wrap the tofu in one small piece of paper towel, and then I take some kitchen towels like this, you know, some cotton towel, and put that around the tofu. I start with one layer of paper towel in case the cotton cloth had you know, laundry detergent on it or something. I don't want it to flavor the tofu. And then I take that tofu and I just sit it under some kind of heavy object, in this case a book and a cutting board. Don't forget the cutting board or the tofu will make the book wet. And I just set it over here on my counter. And I do have some tofu presses, but I don't really use them because I don't like the way they make the tofu kind of crumble on the side sometimes. So I just use this method and it works great. And what I'm doing now is I'm just crumbling the tofu into like 1/2-inch pieces. You don't want to make the pieces too small because they'll just be like nothing. You know, they'll, as you turn it and cook it, they'll kind of be so small that you can't even find them. You don't want them that small. So I'm just going to, you know, do it by hand. And then I'll add my spices and we'll let the tofu cook. So you see, this is not a hard dish. The main thing about tofu scramble is you need to saute up a few vegetables, some aromatics, you know, like onions and garlic and peppers. You could add leftover vegetables. Let's say you had some leftover zucchini, bell peppers. I had that bell pepper out to show you, just one little piece I had. I could have put that in here. If you like carrots, you could put pieces of carrot in here. You could put corn, anything. You know, you can make your own like loaded tofu scramble. And one thing that I made before that was really good was I made tofu scramble mixed with rice. So you can use leftover tofu scramble and make tofu scramble fried rice. And I'm using my gloves because, you know, if you're gonna handle food, sometimes it's better to use gloves if you're tearing it apart. So, you know, just for safety's sake. And I don't know, I don't think anybody outside my family is gonna be eating it, but that's what I did. All right, so now I'm just going to stir it around and add my spices. And I don't want to handle it really roughly. You see, I'm just kind of gently tossing it around, making sure it gets all of these vegetables. And now the tomato is going to kind of flavor it a little bit. Okay, so that's doing really well. And I could add my spices. So what spices do we add? Well, turmeric is nice because it gives it a color, like a yellow color. And tofu scramble, I think, is, you know, something people might like in place of scrambled eggs, right? So the fact that it looks kind of orange or yellow or something makes it appetizing. I think, you know, people would think that. And then the other key ingredient is some kind of black salt, which in this case, this is called kala namak. And it's in this Ziploc bag because there was a hole in my salt bag. And so I got some out, just a pinch. And this black salt, I'll use maybe a couple pinches. The black salt smells like eggs, kind of. It has like a sulfuric smell, which gives it this really nice, it adds this nice little depth of flavor to your tofu scramble because, you know, remember, if it's supposed to be kind of like eggs, having that black salt, you know, takes it over the edge with the taste, kind of that little eggy taste. But don't use too much because that stuff is really strong. Okay, so now you see it's turning that pretty color. Right before your very eyes, you saw that it turned from white to this nice yellow color, which I think makes it look really appetizing. Then some other things we can add, and I don't think they're even in my recipe. You know, recipes to me are guidelines. I change them all the time. In my recipe, I say you could use a couple tablespoons of tofu scramble seasoning from Fresh Jack's. But I'm not going to use it today because not everybody has this, but you can all get turmeric and black salt at the grocery store. But because I'm not using that, I like some of the things in this, maybe a little bit of onion powder to give it a little extra flavor. So 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder. And that's not in my ebook or cookbook, so I'm going to add them to this recipe online. So the little garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon. And also, I'm going to throw in a little red chili flakes, just like a sprinkle. I think that would be good. And last but not least, I have some nutritional yeast. And I noticed that when I got this, boy, this looks very yellow. The tofu scramble seasoning mix does not look this yellow, but that's okay. I noticed when I looked at the Fresh Jack's tofu scramble seasoning, it has nutritional yeast in it. And it also has organic onion, Indian black salt, which we put in, garlic. It has turmeric, not that much though, and paprika. So let's get some paprika. So basically what we're doing is we're making our own version of this expensive tofu scramble mix, okay? So I think that's kind of cool. I probably would maybe use a little less turmeric. It's kind of bright yellow, but it's good. So we get that paprika in there. And if you get any like 2 pieces that are too big, then, you know, break them up. They don't need to be that big. But I can smell it starting to really smell good. And last but not least, we'll put in this nutritional yeast. Now, do we have to put nutritional yeast in here? No, we really don't. The nutritional yeast is, you know, it gives a richness to the food, I think. It makes food taste, well, kind of like cheesy. But we'll put a teaspoon in. We won't go crazy with it. My pet peeve is people put like half a cup of nutritional yeast on their food because they think it tastes really good, but I think that makes it taste really fake, and I don't like it. So nutritional yeast, a little goes a long way. Another thing I recently added to my version of tofu scramble that I made when I was not using my book, because I just throw stuff together, is I got out my tamari, which is a kind of a rich soy sauce, and I put like 1/4 of a teaspoon of tamari in there. That kind of gave it a little bit of zing. Some fresh black pepper, freshly ground. And you don't have to put anything in here that you don't like. If you say, oh, I don't like the taste of tamari and tofu scramble, then just leave it out. You don't have to put it in there. And then I'm going to turn the heat of this down. So some other options we have, depending on what we want to do. Let me get a fork out of here. I'm not going to do it. Well, I guess I could do it. We can add some cilantro, fresh cilantro, a couple of tablespoons. That makes it really good. What I was going to say is we could add greens to this. We could add greens to this, or we could add greens to the grits. So I'm going to add greens to the tofu scramble. Let me get my cilantro in here. And by greens, I'll show you what I mean. And the cilantro gives it a really good taste. I have these super greens that I get all the time from my morning daily greens. I always have a lot of greens around there, kale and chard and some spinach, baby spinach, chard and kale, I believe is in there. But I like to chop them up a little bit because they tend to be kind of big. Now, I think my tofu scramble looks a little dry. So remember I said I had supposed to have 1/4 of a cup. So I'm going to stick these greens in here. In the beginning, I said I was supposed to have 1/4 of a cup of vegetable broth, but I had 1/2 a cup in here, and I only used 1/4 of a cup. Well, I'm going to put the other 1/4 of a cup in there now because I see it's a little dry. And because I added these greens, then that also, you know, a little moisture didn't hurt those greens. So now I've boosted my tofu scramble up a little bit just by adding these nice bright greens. They're just going to make it taste even better and, you know, give you your chance to eat greens. So then you have your G-bombs. I'm not a big Dr. Furman fan. I just read something about him not too long ago, and I just thought, hey, this meets all those criteria for the people who do. So let's taste it. It smells really good. I turned the heat off. Let me taste it. It's pretty good. I have this feeling that I'm going to put a little freshly ground sea salt on it at the end, just because I do that with my food. But it tastes fine without it. Let's check our grits. The grits are still at the point where they're not quite done. I can just tell. I don't have to even taste them. I think they're going to take another 10 minutes or so to be done. So what I'm going to do is put everything, leave everything as is, and come back in a minute and we'll plate everything up once the grits are done. And then I'll show you how I plate the tofu scramble so that it tastes really good. You know, I never turned that stove. I was turning the wrong burner off. No wonder it was still cooking. All right, so here, let you see it, how it looks at the end. It looks very appetizing to me and quite a bit of volume, and paired with the grits, you'll see it makes a really good meal. So see you back here in a couple minutes. Well, that took a little bit longer than I thought it would. It took about 45 minutes before those grits were done, total time. So now, finishing touch of the grits, I didn't say this in the beginning, but to make the grits creamy, because my recipe is called creamy grits, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour about half of them in here, because the next step involves using cashew cream. And I have a son who lives with me, and he's allergic to cashews, so I don't ever put cashews in everything. But I like the cashew cream, cashew milk in my grits because it gives them a little bit of creaminess. So I'm only using, let's say, about 2 tablespoons of cashew cream in here, and I'll add some more if I need to. And I made this cashew milk or cream, whatever you want to call it, with just taking soaked cashews. I think that needs another tablespoon. So like 3 tablespoons. So I soaked the cashews in water for 30 minutes at least. And then I added to 1 cup of cashews, I added a half a cup of water in the blender until it was a nice smooth consistency. So then that gives me, watch out, creamy grits. They're real light colored. And the thing about grits is old-fashioned grits are kind of creamy because a lot of times they put butter and even cream in the grits, so they have that real richness. So I kind of missed that. So I thought, what can I do to make the grits have that kind of that richness that I missed? So the cashew milk gives it just that little bit. So I'm going to put that in my plate here. Put my half a cup or so of my grits. There's a little piece of cilantro, I see. And then I've got my tofu scramble here. And I'm going to use a spoon to get that out. And then we'll garnish it up. So it's still pretty hot. Hasn't been that long. So we'll get a nice, generous serving of our tofu scramble right next to the grits. And, you know, this makes a good 4 servings, the tofu scramble. It's got the vegetables in it, so that kind of adds, excuse me, it adds volume. So, geez, I'm going to get a drink of water. I don't know what all that was about. So now I'm going to add some garnishes. I have some scallions, like just, you know, tablespoon of scallions, my cilantro. I think that looks good on top. And then I also have some avocado. So I cut the avocado in half, and I'm just going to take some avocado cubes out of this avocado. This happens to be a really good one. You never know when you cut an avocado open if it's going to be good or not. A lot of times you get surprised and it'll already be brown inside, even though it felt perfect on the outside. So I'll just put a few cubes of avocado on the side. And the last but not least is we can put some, this is jalapeno sauce on it. This is Yellow Bird organic jalapeno sauce, which I think makes stuff taste really good. So there you have it. We have our, move these avocados a little bit. We have our beautiful tofu scramble with grits. There's greens thrown in there. Get a fork. So it has that nice, has some kind of, you know, vegetables, mushrooms, avocado, Let me taste it all together. What I like about it is you get a bite of the creamy grits, then you get all the different vegetables and tofu and the spices in there, and then we add that little bit of creamy avocado. So on Sunday morning or the weekend when you're craving some kind of savory breakfast and you miss the days when you could go to the cafe and order your whatever country breakfast and you're wishing you had some kind of hot savory breakfast, think about having the creamy grits with tofu scramble. And you can spice it up. You can put southwestern spices on it, chili powder, cumin, whatever. And if you use a tofu scramble from Fresh Jack's, use 2 tablespoons instead of the other spices that I used. And that tastes pretty good, but a lot of people don't want to order that or get it, although I think they sell it in stores now. So I hope you make the plant-based no oil tofu scramble with grits. And thanks for watching. Hope you watch my other videos, subscribe to my channel, and hope to see you all next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.